My conversation today is with J.D. Walther, a life learner, certified mindfulness instructor, and decorated entrepreneur with energy patents. This episode focuses on mindfulness and J.D.'s studies on mindfulness and leaders. I found J.D. to be a heartfelt and fascinating person. We talk about the attributes of mindfulness, being mindful, and how leaders can use mindfulness in adaptive situations, how it could be our greatest defense in the noise of the world, and ultimately, how to be our own best friend, a concept that I had never thought of or even heard of. I was moved several times during our conversation, and it is my hope that following the end of this episode, you too will equally be moved and motivated to begin your mindfulness practice journey today. And now, J.D. Walther. So I'm super excited to talk about mindfulness. I've tried mindfulness throughout the years, read a lot of books on mindfulness. They even have apps now. Have you seen any of the apps?
Sure.
There's a guy, David G. Do you ever?
Yeah.
You've listened to him?
I've listened. I have seen the apps, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that is good.
Yeah.
But yeah, he kind of does kind of the talk through meditation. I'm not sure if there's a term for that.
Yeah. I think when you consider meditation, I learned with other people. So when you think about meditation, it's an individual thing, but it's also something with other people. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the apps are very solo kind of oriented, but the idea of having mindfulness with others actually works a lot better because you begin to share and realize that what you're seeing or feeling is very similar to what somebody else is actually seeing and feeling.
Is there kind of an energy thing, maybe like a vibe, like a?
Potentially, I think it's more. I think humans need each other, and we kind of consider ourselves as solo kinds of beings. But when we're in a meditation and we're kind of having conversations about meditation, we all of a sudden realize that maybe we're not quite so solo.
Right.
Everyone has their own experience, but yet they realize that they're part of a common humanity. Like
Right.
Kristen Neff, who does self-compassion training, part of her three things is kindness, mindfulness, and common humanity.
And what's the last one?
And common humanity.
Common humanity.
Yeah.
Okay. And I guess the common humanity, takes into account what you're saying in regards to the other person or the other people around you, the humanity of what's going on around you.
Yeah, I think we're more similar than we're different.
I think that's safe to say for sure.
Yeah.
So there are some things that I do want to talk to you in regards to mindfulness. I guess first off, if we could kind of, and I'm sure, we'll have to see if this bleed is way too much or not. I
Sure.
was hoping that we may have to do this again. I don't know if that's a problem.
It's not a problem.
But,
It's okay.
But we'll see what we've got. But,
Okay. Being at the ION with everything going on here.
I know, right?
Yeah, it's actually exciting, that you've got a lot going on here. Which is
So,
great.
yeah, it is the humanity around us, for sure.
It sure is.
But I definitely want to start off with kind of, if you can kind of dispel maybe, because in your studies, obviously, you've talked about mindfulness in adaptive situations. Mm-hmm. So I want to kind of unpack that in the sense of mindfulness to you. What is that? What is someone being mindful? Is that them like not hearing anything around them? Is that being hypersensitive to things around them?
No, it's a great question. So mindfulness is it's awareness. That's the best word that I could actually use. It's being sensitive to how you are interacting with yourself and the outside world. So it's a heightened sense of what's happening.
Okay. And it's pausing for that heightened sense? Is it something you can continually unconsciously do, or it is something that you need to stop and do?
No, I think it's when someone practices mindfulness and they're practiced on a consistent basis, there becomes a spaciousness between what they're interacting with, and there's an understanding, a space for understanding that may not be there. Like I lived most of my life not within that space, very reactive. And where mindfulness, it creates a space where you can begin to say, wow, I'm angry about that, or I'm sensitive to that, or that was funny, or that was joyful. and we miss some of those things. But what mindfulness allows us to do is experience that in a way, in the present moment, in a meaningful way. So much of our lives today are we're rushing a million miles an hour. I mean, and we're very distracted. What's the next distraction? Because you really don't want to, oftentimes, interact with the world as it is. And so what mindfulness is it's actually the interaction with the world as it is, as best we can understand it.
Yeah.
Because our brain is locked in our mind. It's black. The only way that we can interact with reality is how we feel. That is what senses, our visual senses, our acuity, the things that we hear, touch. And so we actually interact with the world. And actually most of what comes from our experience, it's from our past. So we put things together from where our past experience comes through. So when we sense the world, we're really sensing it, and we're creating this based on our past experience. And as we move into mindfulness, we begin to move into an experiential experience of the way it is in the present moment.
I've heard some regarded sometimes as non-judgmental. Like you don't necessarily think that's funny, and I don't think that it's not funny, but I just hear it. What do you think about someone that says that?
So what happens is your brain. Let's say that someone walked through that door right there. You might be irritated, right? Because you're in a conversation and that type of thing, or you might have a response. It might be your friend, and you might be happy, whatever it is. Your mind is going to immediately go. Like the neural pathways are going to go. So there's like this, in a sense, it's a judgmental scenario where your mind actually moves immediately to an area. So in a mindfulness scenario, when something rises in the mind, you see it, but you don't judge it. Because the way the mind works, things will come up, and then will display, and then they'll begin to disappear. And then they'll finally but when things display, what our mind will do is it'll grab onto it, or it'll push it away, okay? Or it'll just, so it has that, I use BAP, it'll block it, okay? Or it'll attach to it, or it'll push it away. So your brain naturally does that. But in a non-judgmental way, it just literally just sits there. Oh, there it is. Oh, there is anger. It's not I am angry. It's there's angry. There is anger. It's a very different scenario.
And what's the juxtaposition? Why is it more idyllic, or is it maybe situational? Maybe it's great to not BAP it, but maybe there are moments that you do need to BAP it. Are you saying that there's one that's more superior than the other, or is it just more of?
It's an excellent question. So when in mindfulness, let's say you're doing a mindfulness practice and something arises, so you don't want to BAP it. You want it just to see, right? What is it? Curious. What is that? And then what's attached to it? Why? There's some things that arise that you're going to see, and you don't want to analyze it. It's just like, wow, that's really curious that just happened. And then it's going to self-display and disappear. And in that, seeing is the doing, it's the knowing. It's a good friend of mine, I was talking to him about this, and he was at a conference in Las Vegas, and he went to a magic shop.
Oh, nice. Love the magic shops.
Yeah, it was great. And this guy did this curling, where the card flipped all the way around him like this. And he goes, I really want to know how that works. And the shop proprietor said, if you buy the trick, I'll tell you how it works. Well, he didn't buy the trick. So he spent a whole year, trying to figure out how this trick worked. Wow. So he's back at the conference next year, goes in the shop, buys the trick, and when he sees it, he goes, oh, it was so simple. He spent a year thinking about this silly trick, but it was so simple. Well, it's not that much different with your mind. It's like, oh, wow. It's like once you see it, that changes.
The key is right there.
Yeah.
So you are saying then that there is a time for mindfulness. Like it's not something to be aspired to always be mindfulness, because it could. I mean, you don't want to be in a car wreck. In those situations, like
It's
a momentary thing, or
it becomes a state of being. Like in meditation, which is it's a practice. It's like jogging. Like I think my age, when people started jogging in the 70s, people would say, "Why are they jogging down the road? That person's running down the road. They're really wearing, really strange clothing." And so there was socially, there was this idea that why is someone doing that? Mindfulness practice isn't any different in a sense where we are today. You might be in the park and seeing someone meditating and wondering, why are they doing that? And someday I think it's just going to be a common thing because it's like exercise. It's exercise for the brain. And really it's a matter of, there's so many different types of mindfulness, and we can go into that. But what you often hear in current parlance is, pay attention to your breath. And some people can't do that, right? Because they might have a trauma. And so that might be something where I can't do that because somewhere in my life I had a trauma. So I feel my breath and I just push it away. And so there's, for trauma-based mindfulness, it may be that you should pay attention to your hands or the bottom of your feet or to some other location, but not actually use your breath. So it's a matter of the practice of mindfulness is a way that impacts your health as much as, let's say, jogging or any kind of exercise or anything that you do for that benefit. It's just that it impacts your brain and creates maybe some space, maybe some understanding that changes how you work within the world.
Okay, so it can kind of change your perceptions to a situation that may arise.
It can create a space. A lot of people that are in the mindfulness world have had, they might have had reactive personalities. Some of the leaders out there in the mindfulness space, I'm sure could tell you stories like I can, very reactive personalities. But from that, they've now created a space where maybe they're a little less reactive.
Yeah, that's a good lead into kind of some of the studies that you're doing in regards to leadership coaching and trying to, so let's say, kind of situational type thing. If I'm a leader of a company and, if I'm a stockbroker company and we're seeing stocks go down, I mean, how are you going to incorporate mindfulness, or how does someone take pause to be mindful and not be reactive?
Okay, great. So I study adaptive leadership and mindfulness. And I study complexity. So complex adaptive systems, which is a quantum area, basically.
That sounds high level, yeah.
It is. But what it is adaptation is not a comfortable space to be in, because you have to actually not only take action, but also have complexity associated with it. So people don't want to be there. So it's very difficult to stay there. For example, so if you have complexity, increased complexity going up and action going down. I mean, my work, there's 4 quadrants that people find themselves in. If they're not really engaging in the complexity and not taking much action, then they're withdrawn. They're actually they're withdrawn from whatever the adaptation is. Then if they're in the high complexity space, they're actually trying to deal with the complexity, but they're not taking action, they might be paralyzed. They don't know. This is very confusing. So what do I do? So there's like a paralyzed
space, like an uncomfortableness. They don't have the work process they
haven't really figured it out. So they're kind of stuck up here. And then over here, there may be people taking action, but they're dealing with old habits. So they're more habitual space. And so they're looking at new problems with old solutions. So they may be taking action, but it's more of a habitual action. But when you have both the action and the complexity together up here, then you're in an adaptive space. And for like adaptive leadership, it's the productive zone of disequilibrium. Okay, you don't want to stay there. It's hard, right? Because it's very difficult to deal with all the various things that are going on in the people and the society and the culture and trying to figure these things out. And what happens is people drop out. They actually can't. They actually find that they can't stay there. And so for a leader, what mindfulness I think can do is give, with the training, allow someone to stay in that adaptive space longer, because they can actually be more open to the complexity that's happening, as well as the action and the interactions associated with it. So I
wow.
study the adaptation up here.
And that doesn't sound like, I mean, are some people just natural adaptive mindfulness, or does everyone need to?
I think everybody needs to become more aware of what's happening around them, particularly in our current modern society. Because in our modern society, we really want to, we have so many different opportunities in our phones, on our televisions, on our computers, to actually move away from what's happening. And and I think that it's created like a deep well. So when something does happen, when people jump up into what's actually happening, it's very disruptive and difficult and disturbing. But if we're more conscious of what's happening in that space, that we're less reactive. It's like, oh, that is happening. Oh, that is how am I reacting to that? So much of our lives, particularly in the marketing world, is they want you to grab something, right? They want you to move that way. In politics, they want you to move and shake.
I see what
They
you're
want to
saying.
grab
The
and shake.
result,
But if we all stepped back just a bit and then said, "Wow, that's really, I'm really angry about that. Why is that? And then what's behind that? Why did someone say that?" Those questions are really very powerful. But more about myself. Wow, I reacted to that. So
Yeah. I watched a show, Undercover Boss, and I always go back to that example. It was waste management, and the people, the CEO, top level, set all these rules for their truck drivers. And then they didn't realize that this truck driver was having to, use the restroom in a can because they had a rule that you needed to be at a certain point in your route or something like that. And, they were just on that. So they're undercover now, and they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that you had to. So I don't know if that's kind of certainly not you're not going to be sitting at home being mindful and realize that. But I think it's going back to what you're saying about know your surroundings, know what your implications are.
yeah, know what's influencing you. Realize, step back from that reaction, whatever reaction it is, and say, "Wow, that's interesting. That's really interesting." And in a mindfulness world, like let's say in meditation, you might be meditating, and then your mind is. There's this idea that like the mind and the energy in the mind is like this, right? There's that idea, like I'm really got a lot of energy, not, and your mind does that. It doesn't work that way. Actually, your mind has a very constant energy flow.
It's on.
Yeah, it's on. Because think about your bodies. It has to regulate everything within your body, and then everything that's
Sorry,
going on.
lungs, I took a break.
Lungs, yeah, got to hold. Time out. Right? Yeah, exactly. And so your body's, but our consciousness, there's like this little bump that comes up above from the subconscious to the conscious, and some are really high, maybe because maybe it's a higher reaction, but the brain just is kind of going along. And so in a meditation, you might, I meditate like this or like this. Or sitting like this, you can meditate. It doesn't matter how you sit. There's this idea, that, this person, cross-legged and
there's a stereotype,
and floating
right?
kind of idea, yeah, and that's all just crap. Okay, meditation doesn't that, but as you're meditating, that is maybe you're concentrating on your hands or your breath or whatever, and your mind goes into you sense that it's moved in a certain way, and you just observe it, and it's going to disappear, and then it's like you might hear fundamentally, like even like Headspace, one of the first things they do is, your mind is like the sky, like the clouds in the sky. It's just something's going to arise, and then it's going to move away. And that arising is just part of what's us of being human, it's constantly, your mind is going to, your mind is meant to think. It's meant to process. It's meant to interact with the world. And so it's going to, you're not turning it off. It's more you're just observing it.
Mm-hmm.
And in that observation comes, in the seeing is the doing of what's happening.
Great. So in the regards to, everyone's schedules are different. How does someone go about finding like an ideal time to be mindful? Or is it something that should, if you're just sitting there, be mindful? Or, should you take a time out specifically at a certain part of the day?
Yeah, I would recommend that you find a time that you spend in mindfulness and whatever works for you, because everybody's brains and everybody's lives work differently. But I would set aside a time that's kind of your space. And I think in the beginning, I think it takes kind of a space and a time. And then over time, it begins to just kind of happen where you can have a meditation space pretty much anywhere. But in the beginning, I think it's really good to have a space.
Designate a specific area, a specific chair.
Yeah, just a comfortable, I think one of the ideas, people might think that there might be physical limitations to me, sitting on the floor. And I would say over 50% of the people that meditate are sitting in the normal chair. So I don't think it necessarily has to be. I think some people find it's in a comfortable space, a space where they feel safe, is really a great place to be. I don't think it has to be any place in particular. I think listening to meditations beginning from somebody else to begin with is really good. They're going to guide, if it's a solid guide, they're going to help you to work through and think through some of the basic things before you move into a scenario where you might be just doing it on your own. Mm-hmm. Highly recommend a class that is going into a group with others and learning some basic techniques from there and let it go on from there. It's very difficult. Now, Diana Winston from UCLA, she has something called glimpse practices.
Oh, nice.
Which I really like.
I like the sound of that, yeah.
And what that is, it's just, let's say you're working really hard, and then it's just lifting away from what you're doing and then looking around. And maybe there's a picture on your desk that you really love, and just look at that for a minute, and then come back. Glimpse out of what you're doing, come back again. And I love the glimpse practice. And you can do that in anything.
Yeah.
Absolutely anything. And even like you're at a concert that you really love, or you're watching the TV in your trance mode, and all of a sudden you step back and say, wow, that person said something really wonderful. Wow. And then you can go back and do something else. But whatever it is, it's just that rising your awareness to that moment that you're probably missing otherwise.
Yeah, I think it makes the memory louder.
Absolutely.
I think over time, for sure, that, and I think that sometimes it can help when things maybe aren't going your way. Maybe you can draw from that memory of, I do remember that concert, and things are, I don't know, it's kind of gets a little metaphysical, I guess, but.
Yeah, I think our memories are part of what, again, they build us up. They're how we interpret the world. So if we bring in memories or in a higher state of awareness to what's happening, then those memories, I guess, would be more acute.
Yeah, I would think. In regards to mindfulness, sometimes I hear like a spiritual practice. Is mindfulness connected with spirituality? Should it be separated, or?
It's a great question. So all of the spiritual practices have had some type of mindfulness associated with them, some sense of awareness beyond themselves. So regardless of what spiritual practice someone is practicing, mindfulness will be a help to them. A lot of the mindfulness came from the Buddhists.
Yeah, definitely.
And so, and so they were some of the early practitioners of trying to get a sense of what's happening, in the world, and using multiple techniques to do that. So a lot of the foundations of modern secular, now secular from that term is more of a scientific academic term, more the scientific mindfulness. A lot of their base came from Buddhist thought, where the Christians and someone from who's Islamic or Hindu or really any religion, they in and of themselves have mindfulness within what they do.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a good practice. My daughter took a course, and she came out and she's like, "Yeah, we ate one grape," and it's like one grape, but then when you listen to her, there was one bite. It must have taken 10 bites for that grape. It's like,
yeah.
So that's definitely
yeah. It's a common practice actually. It's the grape. It's the see the grape on the table, hold the grape. It can be any food, by the way. Feel it, because you never do really. But how does it feel? And then really sense that, and then smell it, and then put it on your lips, and then just put it on your tongue, and then see how your mouth reacts to it, and then take a bite, and then chew it, and then swallow. All of them different things, and all you can eat that way, which is really amazing. If you think of how you just slow down how you're eating, something you really like, and then just go really slow. And the experience is much more.
I think I'm going to do that next time I take some queso. I'm going to really see the drip of the cheese.
That's right. Good Texas queso. You can't beat
that. Because I guess you're from Aberdeen. So have you?
Yeah. Well, no. I'm actually from Nevada. I grew up in the.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'm a fifth generation Nevadan.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
Yeah, and then I came to Texas to A&M in the '80s. I was a ski bum.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and so decided either to get an education or go skiing, and I think education won. And then I stayed down here.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I'm glad you did. Yeah, it's great. Although Nevada is fun to visit for a weekend.
And then I was studying mindfulness, and I was looking for a practice. I really wanted to study out to a place where I could bring back to the community. And I found a master's program at the University of Aberdeen in Scotland. And so I've been practicing in Scotland for the last couple of years, mainly via Zoom, although I'll be leaving next month and I'll spend some time there too.
Oh.
But yeah, it's really broadened my practice, looking at mindfulness from an academic standpoint. Mm-hmm. Mindfulness really wasn't even within the academic purview before probably 1999, 2000. And then since then, it's like an amazing curve.
Yeah.
30,000 papers. I mean, a huge amount of it's everywhere. And so I've learned not only the practical side, but also the academic side as well.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I think when you and I first met, you commented on a lot of times people think that mindfulness is checking out, but to you, it's checking in.
Absolutely.
And how do we get that out to the masses to understand that?
I think it's just time. We're so used to living in a world that's giving us opportunities to check out, including some practical thoughts about mindfulness. That seems practical, right? And you see somebody maybe in a meditating and thinking, "Wow, they're checked out," but actually they're going to be checked in to themselves and to what's happening within themselves. I liked your word judgmental, non-judgmental. That's John Kabat-Zinn, who was one of the fathers of the early mindfulness that was taught, like it's mindfulness-based stress reduction, so MBSR, which came out of UMass in the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, that's great.
And his work was with cancer patients.
Oh, man. So they're, I guess, doing mindfulness when they're getting the chemo or when they're going into the scans or?
Yeah, no, they put groups together of people that that are cancer patients, and they found that mindfulness helps with their recovery. The
recovery from the chemo or recovery from the cancer in general?
Both.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it actually makes differences within. They've done studies that show, in the blood work itself, physiologically, that there are changes based on those that did mindfulness versus those that didn't.
And they had a better or quicker, wow.
Yeah, they actually had positive impact associated with it.
Yeah, I do find myself sometimes when I get like a sore throat, I do kind of, I don't know if it's mindful, but I do just kind of say, hey, let's everybody kind of gather around the neck. Let's
I'm
get
not sure
some.
if that works, but
Okay, I didn't know if that's a form of.
But I don't know. I have no clue. I haven't seen any research on that.
Okay, well, we'll have to get a paper on that or something. But if someone's doing like some of the apps and stuff, like sometimes I'll listen to them and then I'll fall asleep.
Sure.
Am I getting the benefits of mindfulness, or is it more something that I should be awake for the entire time?
No, it's actually really common. And what I would think to do is if you're listening to an app and you're falling asleep, then try to catch yourself right before you fall asleep.
Oh, wow. And just kind of
Just say, wow, I'm just trying to fall asleep. What is that like? What's that experience like?
Oh, that is good. Yeah, just to come in a little bit.
It's super common.
Because
super common. And actually, mindfulness there are some studies that show that mindfulness does help people sleep. Now, and there is some things that are actually there. Now, mindfulness to sleep, that may be different than just mindfulness and sleep.
Right. Because you're really wanting mindfulness to either do a physiological change or a mental perception change on the moment. And really,
yeah, I would look for myself, because everybody's different. For myself, when things to be more conscious of what's arising in my brain, such that there's space to respond if I need to respond in a more appropriate way. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really the intention from a daily basis.
And what happens to your brain? Have they kind of put it under the electrons or the?
They've done amazing stuff.
Some of the CAT scan, or
oh yeah, it's they're still learning a huge amount, because the brain is just such a huge mystery, and it's still a mystery. Nobody really has that.
I think it will always be. Yeah, I don't know how you can really fully tap into it.
Yeah, but there's a person by the name of Davidson, who's at University of Wisconsin, has done a huge amount of work. For meditators like a Buddhist meditation person that's done thousands of hours of meditation, their actual brain waves change. The theta brain waves are different.
And they are firing less hard?
They're theta, meaning their attention, their functionality in acuity is higher than somebody else.
And they're going to hear a pin drop, and maybe I wouldn't, or they kind of...
Yeah, they'll be more sensitive, I think, to what's going on around them than you and I would, probably.
It sounds like you need to kind of close your mouth a little bit, maybe when you're mindful. I don't know if maybe people are always kind of like telling people what to do, and maybe sometimes mindfulness is just kind of...
Yeah, I think that's a really good lead-in. Everybody's unique and different. Everyone's brain is completely different. That's one of the things that we really have to think about. I see the world different than you see the world. My son is colorblind, and so he sees a completely different set of colors than what I see. So it's, we just see the world so differently. We smell the world differently. Have you ever have those little sticks where you sense something that tastes terrible and nobody else does?
All right.
Right? Yeah. So you taste different. You feel differently. Your skin is different than my skin. So we're completely different in the way that, and uniquely wonderful in the way that we actually see and sense the world. And that uniqueness is just really amazing. And to miss that, your uniqueness. John Kabat-Zinn said something which I really love. He said, why take away the opportunity for someone to learn about themselves? Let them experientially learn. Let them experientially sense and find out about who they are. And I really think that's very powerful and right. And there's so many people who are just telling you do this, do that. And to have a sense of a guide maybe to say, or other people around you, where you realize that there's a lot of things similar about us, but at the same time we're amazingly unique. and wonderful.
Yeah, I don't know why, but really got emotional when you said that. I'm not sure if maybe it's something that, you've always, you in general, not you, but, going for that prize or going for that, to take time out and just kind of look around. I don't know. Just kind of caught me there.
Yeah, we have this really amazing opportunity as humans. I mean, to sense the universe with really fairly limited tools. I mean, amazing tools, but still fairly limited. And so that opportunity is just so amazing. And our mind is bringing up these things, and we're in this world of so much influence by modern society that we never had, as humans before this point in time.
Yeah, I do totally agree. I mean, it used to be, growing up, you would lock the door or, hang up the phone and things were out. But yeah, all of these things have infiltrated without ever coming through the front door.
No,
or without ever,
yeah.
Breaking in at all. They just...
There's an intention, right? There's an intention to grab you, right? That television program, that phone. There's an intention there. There's an intention of that. Very, very much an intentionality from somebody behind whatever it is that you're looking at. And so, but it's okay, right? If you know that, if you recognize it, right?
If you're mindful and see that and say, okay, this is coming in, I need to turn that off.
Yeah, or you just, oh wow, there is an intention behind this. Okay. But the point is that I'm seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's again that idea. We're going to live that. The world's only going to get more integrated with technology, but for us as humans to thrive, I think we need to be more centered, more aware, so that we can sense the world as it is, versus having the world actually being painted in front of us.
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting. Super powerful. Yeah, to definitely do that. Especially when I just saw yesterday that AI is an unbelievable painter now, that AI is now making paintings that don't exist just from phrases. And
yeah.
So, yeah, it gets a little existential.
Yeah. I saw something on TV this morning I liked. So there's this fellow. He goes to graduation. I'm not sure what this graduation is. And he takes a big mirror. And he's been doing it for 20 years. And so for the students, as they're beginning to, get ready for the graduation, he shows them their mirror, so they can adjust their hat or show what they look like.
Wow, in real time. Huh?
Yeah, you think about that. That's really cool. And that's a great idea of what mindfulness is. It's that turn the mirror to the graduated person, to that, wow, I really am something amazing.
You're kidding me again. Come on. Huh? I have a daughter that's graduating next week, so... Maybe we'll
take a mirror with you and say, look at you. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Wow, it is. Because I think sometimes, going back to what you're saying with the things that are infiltrating or the things around us, people want to tell you how you look and how you feel. And mindfulness will definitely be like, no, I feel like this.
I'm okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm okay. Yeah, that's, I'm okay.
Yeah. It almost seems like you're also kind of talking about empathy. I'm hearing more and more about empathy and like you're saying, when you get those distractions or something, you don't judge like, darn it, why are they doing those? It's more like, okay, those distractions are coming in. I understand they need to get eyeballs, they need to get money, but I'm not going to be partaking in it today.
Yeah. Maybe some days I will.
Yeah.
But at least the thing is, I know what it is. In compassion is so there are different types of mindfulness that are out there in the world, and there's this mindfulness that's focus based, very attentional based. So I'm paying attention to my body. Let's be a body scan, or I'm attention to my breath or my hands, or maybe something that's in the environment, the sense of sound, could be that. That's attentional mindfulness. So that's one type. And then there's what I would consider like a constructive mindfulness. That would be like a compassion practice, a kindness practice.
Yeah, I like that. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, so a compassion practice would be like in the Buddhist world, it would be like they call it Tong Len, which would be taking and sending. It's the idea of you would bring in you would sense compassion what someone else's situation is, and actually try to understand what that is, and then in a real way, and then send back to them peace and power and love and those types of things. So it's a sense, it's a cycle that I see you, I feel as I can, and I'm sending back a sense of graciousness, peace, understanding.
Not trying to fix it.
Not trying to fix it.
Not trying to,
No.
but just saying, I see you.
Yeah, and
You're having a hard day.
yeah, and compassion is that it in its form would be you want to do something. It's natural, right? It's a human scenario. And so a natural byproduct of that would be the action, and that comes. Yeah. But you have to see first. It's like the person walking down the street or a person that you might look away from. It's seeing that first, seeing the pain, seeing the commonness. We're all not too far away from the street. And then once you see that, then it's having empathy, if you want to use that, having compassion, and then taking action associated with that. Yeah. People aren't that different. I worked with homeless people for 8 years. They're not all that different than the CEOs and executives I worked with.
Yeah, we do want to put a label on them that, what's wrong with them? Why don't they get off the streets or something like that? What did you find in your dealings? A little bit of off the track, but what did you find in your dealings with, sometimes I hear houseless?
Really bad things happen to people. They get thrown out of their situation, whatever that might be, from the CEO point to the partner, if you're in a high level business person, to just somebody who's trying to make it day to day, and all of a sudden everything falls apart, and they just oftentimes they just check out. Oftentimes the drugs and alcohol and other things. It's an easy way to check out and not be aware of the world. Oftentimes there's mental instabilities. I won't use illness, but instabilities that actually happen that are serious, and once someone falls in, it's awful hard to get out. It's like a trap. It's there's a circular trap. Good example, like in health, like in Houston. If somebody goes and gets mental health services, let's say they were on the street, and then they begin finding a medication that works for them, and then they actually begin taking it and they feel better. Well, they feel better, but that medication takes a cycle. It takes someone to actually go back in and keep taking it and
change the dose
and find a place to receive it, or go to that place to receive it. And then what happens oftentimes, unfortunately, is many times they'll fall off, and then because they don't need it anymore, or they can't get to where they need to get to it, then they fall back into their cycle again, and then they pick them back up again, and then they find find the med and keep on going. It's really difficult. And the street's really hard because people on the street take advantage of each other. They steal from each other. They help each other. It's very much it's an incredibly difficult place to be. They don't know who to trust, and then that trust gets mitigated to a point where oftentimes they don't trust anyone or anything.
Yeah, it can really be.
Yeah, it's awful hard. So perceptually, like going back to mindfulness, so I'm a homeless person, and I come into a room with you, I don't know you, well, I don't trust you, right? And then I try to help you, and a lot of people try to help people, and they might or might not help them in the right way.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you can get food XYZ, and then you go there and it's not what you expect. And then that trust mitigates and keeps on going.
Yeah,
So
that just kind of spirals down.
Yeah, it becomes a huge trust issue.
Oof, yeah. Yeah, you mentioned drugs in regards to mindfulness. That is probably the worst thing. And I'm talking drugs, not drugs that help people, for cancer or anything, but specifically drugs that people use to medicate to almost be numb and de-mindful.
Absolutely.
And and I'm asking, you can't be mindful and be on drugs, can you? Or I don't know.
No, because, well, you could be, if you're...
I guess
if
maybe
you're
the
under
psychedelics would probably differ.
Yeah. If you're on medication, that is actually helping with a person's balance. Absolutely, it's helpful, okay? Or can be helpful. I can't say it's absolute, but can be helpful, depending on what the scenario is. But if someone is escaping the world by using
That's the word, yeah.
those kinds of substances, then you're putting a veil over what the reality is. You might have a reason for that. There might be something really, someone might not be able to actually work with the world, or they might want that feeling and not the interaction with the world. That's why oftentimes you'll see, people that might be on the streets and have a lot of alcohol because they want to cushion themselves away from that reality that they live in. So I think mindfulness releases that. I think it's not, you can't be mindful and interacting with full awareness in the world and be on that type of drug that you're taking to escape the world.
Yeah. And I think that kind of gets to where mindfulness maybe really is where the route is, in the sense of, if you've got an issue that's going on in your life, and if you do take mindfulness to be like, what's my part in my situation? Mm-hmm. What am I doing to contribute to where I'm at? Then I think that maybe that mindfulness can elevate you out of that situation.
Yeah, there's a guy named Judd Brewer. He's at Brown, and he works with cigarette addiction and other types of addictions and mindfulness. So, the brain is like a desert. You ever see the pictures of the desert and you have the roads that go out, and so someone's taking a road, and then the more they go down the road, the deeper the tracks get.
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay, so imagine a desert, and your brain is a desert, and you have roads going out, and there's a road that where this Jeep is constantly going down, and the ruts are getting deeper and deeper and deep. It's not unlike the way addiction works. I move down that track. Because and the more you do it, even if you push away from it, you're still going down the track. So it's not just going down the track, it's also the act of pushing away. So I'm bapping it. I'm grabbing it, I'm pushing it away, I'm something with it, I'm shaking it. It's creating the neural pathway. So what Judd talks about is that if we just, in the way that you sense it in your body first, so your body senses things seconds before your mind realizes that things happen, and so you're gonna sense that before your body. Your body's the first thing that's going to notice that there's a difference, there's a craving or something, and so what Judd recommends is just recognize it, and then keep going. Don't push it away. Don't modify, meaning don't take gum or eat or something. Just notice and keep going. Notice and keep going. And so versus going down the track, it's just oh.
Oh, so judging by your hands, you're taking a different path now. That notice is just a little bit of a tweak.
Just a little bit of a tweak. And so what happens is your brain, imagine a desert again, and then that neural pathway is run. Deep tracks, deep ruts. But as your mind changes, the path gets lighter, just like the desert. gets lighter and gets lighter to a point where then it's not even a pathway. Your mind won't go there. It's going to keep on going.
So that's going to bring in moderation then, because you don't want a deep groove on anything really then, do you? I mean,
yeah.
Is it?
I don't know. I kind of like the idea that I'm seeing the world as it is, right? And then maybe there are some grooves that need to be in there, But
Yeah.
I don't know. But I don't think it's a groove to go down a pathway that's destructive.
Right.
It's wow, I'm feeling that. Okay, I'm feeling that.
Oh, wow. And how long does that usually take? I mean, I know it's probably different for everyone, but yeah.
How deep is your path? How deep is your roots?
How deep is your roots?
It sounds like a sentence. It does. It sounds like it sounds like
yeah. I'm hoping to in talks to do an addiction one coming up to try to talk about that and dispel that with all the opioids and everything. I was just watching they had a health presentation last week out there, and I guess we're kind of pre-pandemic. We're kind of doing okay, and then it's just suicides and deaths. Yeah, just kind of related to it.
It's a lot of additional pressure on people, financially, mentally, socially. We're kind of in uncharted territory, and I think that that's really disrupted a lot of people in ways that have created a lot of anxiety and depression. When we're used to being out with people and we feed on people and we might be an extrovert, those needs aren't being met.
Right.
My introvert friends are doing just fine.
Living their best life.
Living their best self. Woohoo!
This is great.
Yeah, exactly.
So do I want to Zoom? Nope, not today.
Nope, not today.
Sorry.
Exactly.
So
have an excuse for it. Yeah. No, I think it's really created a lot of disruption in our society that people have had a really hard time dealing with.
Yeah. I think people, don't allow themselves to change that path. And I'm going back to your path analogy in regards to I started out an accountant also, and recovering accountant.
Yeah, recovering accountant.
For 20 years now.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's hard because, you got this education, or people see you as that, or they think, and it is hard to change that bow, to get that new direction. And again, going back to mindfulness, it's okay. It used to be, when I was trying to walk as a kid, our parents were like, good job. If I fell, they're like, and they weren't like, oh, why didn't you just try one more week, or something. They just kind of, give you that support. But yeah, I don't think that we allow ourselves to try a new path.
Yeah, we live in our past.
For sure.
Yeah, but we live in our past. But the only place we can live is in the present moment.
The right now.
Right now.
Right here.
Right now. Yeah. And what mindfulness is very oriented toward the present moment. What's happening right now. Not back there, but right here. Not the future, not the past.
And I think over time it becomes calming, but certainly when you first try to do that, it becomes scary.
Absolutely.
I think it's like, well, I'm just sitting here. I could be doing this, and this to either better myself or whatever.
Yeah. There's so many things your brain's going to say. Why am I here? What am I doing? And it's like we also live in an impact-oriented society, right? I do this, then this happens. I do this, and this happens. It's very reactive, right? I turn the channel, I get what I want. It's very reactive. And so when you sit with yourself and you begin to watch what happens, within that space, a lot of things can come up. And a lot of them can be just like, for me, I'm body phobic, meaning there's something called a body scan where you begin your, you would move from one part of your body all the way through and just sense what's happening in your body. And when I began body scans, I would immediately my mind would go away. It's like, to the Dairy Queen, double.
Yeah.
Okay,
Double dip that.
Double
thing.
dip that. Right, and so my mind would just zip away. I couldn't stay with my body, and so that's just what, maybe something happened, or maybe it's related to my upbringing. Maybe there was trauma. I don't know of any trauma, but I really have a hard time, or had a hard time historically, actually staying in a body scan, which is normal for me. And now it's like, oh, make that a double. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Because the point is that I accepted it. Oh wow, yeah. There I go again. Okay, let's come back. Let's come back and let's stay here.
Yeah.
But at first it was very disturbing. Why can't I? You're maybe in a meditation with other people, and they look like they're doing really great. And you're in crisis. Right? You're just saying, wow, this isn't working for me.
Right.
But the point is that with acceptance, which is really important with mindfulness, to accept what's happening, to accept who you are, to accept this. You don't have to agree with it. It's not good, bad, or otherwise. It's not. But it's just being very accepting of, wow, I have a difficult time with a body scan.
Do you think people fear what they might?
Sure. Don't we all?
Yeah.
Don't we all? Yeah. Don't we? Aren't we afraid of? Isn't it a natural reaction? Yeah.
The unknown.
The unknown.
What is my part in my situation? What is my part?
Yeah, I might not want to be with myself. I'm afraid of what's going to come up. Sure, absolutely. That would be a very natural thing. Yeah.
What are some of your longest mindful moments?
So, a good idea to show you. Okay, compassion practice. So there was this compassion practice that you actually visualize what, how your self actually considers itself. Okay, that is that thing within you that that might be positive, negative, or whatever, and mine was fairly malevolent. It's like, because I'm kind of a type A/B personality, and I keep on, I have a very high sense had a high sense of what of mission and what I was doing, and so it was very very pointy, kind of like the Terminator with that point, kind of that sticks out.
Yeah,
Imagine
totally.
a little being like that.
Okay.
So yeah, and so it's pushing me, and I realized what it was. I realized that my sense of self, that is, that thing that drove me, was that way, but I realized it from a place of compassion, and then befriended that idea.
Oh, wow.
In the sense that it wasn't the pointy thing, it was just something that was like a more rounded kind of scenario. But it was in a sense that that I changed that self that was constantly attacking myself to one that was like my own best friend. And I think mindfulness is that. So the mindfulness moment, the key thing is that you learn to put your arm around yourself and to say, hey, I can be my own best friend. And that's really hard for people. That idea was groundbreaking for me, that I could be my own best friend.
What was the hurdle?
I don't think I'd ever thought of myself that way. You
didn't think of yourself as a good person, worthy of being the
No,
best
I
friend,
think
or?
that I don't think you think of yourself as your own friend. At least I didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then by thinking of that, oh, I can be my own friend. I can think of myself. Great example. Christian Neff and Chris Gerner talk about this, and I think it's really powerful. It's so if someone came to you with a real problem, something that really was a heartfelt thing that happened to them, what would you do for them? Well, you would probably have compassion for them and talk to them and try to help them to relate to whatever's happened and be kind. And if it was really bad, you might send them a present, and you might do something really nice for them. But if that happens to you, what do you do to yourself? Right? How are you responding to in your own way to your own self? You deserve that too. You deserve your own sense of thinking versus wow, it's you deserve that same attention to yourself as you would give to somebody else.
Yeah, I've heard it in regards to imposter syndrome, but now you're taking it to another personal level of almost, yourself as a...
Yeah, an imposter syndrome would be one that always feels, as I understand imposter syndrome, it would be someone who feels that they're acting as if they're an imposter in a situation. They're a CEO of a company and they don't feel that they belong there.
Right.
That would be inside. They don't, even though they're completely worthy and have a great amount of education and fundamental skill, within themselves they don't feel that that's actually that they're worthy, that they need to be there. But in the self-compassion world, it would be that kindness. So from Kristen Neff's work, she has a great book for women called Fierce Self-Compassion. And it's the idea of that we think of compassion as really nurturing, like a motherly nurturing.
Sure.
But there's also a mother, stop. Don't do that, right? Right? Don't put your hand in the fire. Okay? There's two different sides to it. There's a yin. If there's a yin and yang, there's a negative, positive. There's a strength and weakness kind of scenario. That is really very important to the idea of not only that the kindness to thyself is not only is both nurturing and fierce, right? It's this sense of I can say no, or I can accept what's happening. I can be kind to myself, or I can be hard to myself. I shouldn't do that, right?
Yeah. I wonder if that's a therapy that is probably should, or I'm sure it probably already is, of anyone that's thinking of harming themselves. I think that because how can you harm your best friend? I mean, if
why would you harm your best friend? Why would you harm your best friend? And then I would, there's that phone a friend, right? The point is that, we are living there is somebody out there like me. I'm not alone.
That's the key, yeah.
Yeah, and that's that common humanity. And the more that we work, the more that we move ourselves into other people, the more we realize that we're not alone, and that there's there's more similarities than differences about us. But there's a lot of things in our society that try to bring us back in, right? That will block that connection with other people that's so important. It's one of the things that's really hurting our society right now, is that we've created all sorts of things that block us from communicating.
Yeah, for sure.
And back to adaption, bring full circle.
Yeah, there you go. Great way to close it out.
Sure.
Yeah.
So adaption, one of the critical things to adaption is communication. You cannot adapt if you're not communicating.
And so mindfulness is a way of communicating with yourself?
With yourself and others, right? So, because if you're more aware of what's happening, then your communication is potentially better. You might be making a better choice about how you're communicating. You might be understanding the person that's across from you better, because you're able to actually be more in tune with the present moment in your mind, not being off someplace else. But communication, both the receiving and the sending, is absolutely critical for adaptation. And we societally are doing a terrible job right now, in my opinion, with that. Because we have so much complexity, we have so much adaptation going on, and we're communicating so poorly.
Yeah, I hope politicians are watching this. They can do some more communicating.
No, it's everybody.
Do you think it's malicious, or do you think it's? I mean, is there a being out there that's intending for us? I guess sometimes social media Parks think that there's a plot to kind of split us. Not
Okay,
to split us Democrat or anything like that.
I'll answer in a mindful way, which is in a very authentic way, and that would be I believe yes. I believe what I've learned from an academic standpoint on how the brain works and how modern messaging is so sophisticated that it can be tailored to elicit a response within a given audience in a non-aware way that drive something, that I would say that the people on K Street in the United States, I would say in those that want to influence us are using very sophisticated techniques, and they're doing it on purpose.
And so mindfulness now becomes a defense mechanism of...
Absolutely, yeah, because if we have knowledge, it's like that magic trick. We have knowledge, then all of a sudden it's like, wow, that just happened to me. I just rode down that road, and I did that. Why? And once that it begins to, the magic trick goes away, and then things, I think society will be better. But right now, because a lot of these techniques and everything have kind of been adapted over the last 20 years, we are being inadvertently manipulated, in my opinion. And I think we haven't learned to recognize what's happening, and that's just a matter of time. And just again, it's just a matter of understanding, of beginning to be more conscious of what's happening around us. It doesn't matter what side of the political spectrum.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, yeah, sounds flippant, but yeah, wake up.
Wake up, yeah. It's now, yeah. Wake up to what's happening. Now, and it's just saying, oh, wow.
I'm being manipulated, but
yeah.
I can choose not to be, or like you're saying, I've been doing this.
I've been going down this road, like, wow. I keep getting these things that keep showing up on my computer, and I'm going down that road, down that road, down that road, and down that road. It's like, wait a second.
I'm in control.
Yeah, let's keep going. Wow, okay. On. And then pretty soon it's like, okay. And then you go on to do something else.
Awesome. Well, I can't thank you enough for your time.
Yeah, it's been great.
Your insights and everything. And I hope I'm definitely going to be more mindful. I've been trying to do more of a mindful path over the years, but this definitely enlightens it more. And I'm really going to do a deep dive on, being my best friend, because I don't know if I have been or even thought about it in that way. I'm always, for me personally, I'm the type of person that, I mean, I'll do whatever it takes for someone to be happy. I'm always looking outwardly, and if they're happy, then I'm happy. But
right.
I'm trying to do more of taking in stock to be like, no, that doesn't make me happy doing that, so I'm okay, and you'll find somebody that'll do that, or I don't know.
Yeah, I think if we're our best selves, then we project our best selves.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a matter of us being, I think that idea that we can be our best friend is huge.
Yeah,
it's huge, regardless of mindful or not mindful, right? It's just a matter of, wow, I should treat myself a whole lot better than I do for some people.
Yeah, and I mean, the friend's always right there, right?
Absolutely.
So it's easy just to be like, hey.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, what's up? How's it going?
Yeah, exactly. What's up? How's it going? Yeah, or why'd you do that?
Yeah.
Because best friends do that, right?
Yes. Wonderful. Thank you so much, JD.
You bet. My pleasure.
Look forward to, definitely keep in touch regarding any of your papers. If you want to talk about anything else, anytime, you just reach out, and we'd love to give you a voice.
Well, it's been a pleasure, Steve. Thank you for your time today.
But watch you go. And every time you leave, it's X and O's. The vibe is so official, there ain't nothing coming close. And whenever we link, it's X and O's, X and O's, X and O's, X and O's. X and O's, X and O's, X and O's, X and O's. X and O's, X and O's.